Righty. Let's make sure. Refresh. And boy, am I rusty. So let's do this. Let's hit the comma key and let's move this down. And you know what? Let's get some. You know what? I could just use this. Do I have a head anywhere in here? You know what? I'm gonna use this guy. Good enough. All right, so a couple different things you could do. You could start with the comma key. You can go into the tool menu and you could go into like the female head, the demo head, all sorts of head options in here. You can also have projects in here. And if you want to play around with the head planes, you can go in here to head planes. Hey, what's up, Ivan? Thanks for showing up. We're going to do a little bit of exploration because boy, I am rusty. So we could start with the female head, 128, and then you've got the head zones that you can start sculpting on. If you want to start from scratch, we can do that too. So we can go ahead and just start with like a sphere here, and we can go to Make Polymesh 3D, hold down Control Shift, we'll go into Clip, Curve, turn on X symmetry here, and you know, I always go Z forward, Y up. However, if you remember from ZBrush 2020, we could go into not our Z plugin, but our preferences. And there is a cam view now, so we can turn our cam view on, and of course you can cycle through these, and you can kind of just have that kind of hanging out so you know which way you're facing. But we don't need that. So we know we're going this way, so we're going to go ahead and turn this into a head. Now, of course, you can just, let's go ahead and turn off Align Cursor Service. You can just start sculpting a head. It's about just like that, and you're good to go. If you want to get fancier, you could append a bunch of cylinders and stuff like that. But I think that this will get us where we're headed. So we have standard brush here. We got Z add turned on. I'm going to crank that Z add up just a little bit, and I'm also going to go into my stroke here, and I'm going to say lazy mouse, crank the lazy radius up so you can get a nice smooth stroke, and then I'm going to tap L to turn that off. So if I need it, I can get it, but I don't really need it right now. So about halfway down, top of the head, bottom of the chin is going to be about our eye line right through here. So let's go ahead and carve out a little space for our eyes here. And also let's go ahead and Dynamesh this. So I'm going to go ahead and just hit Dynamesh. It's going to be under Geometry, Dynamesh. And that'll work for now. And then now we need to worry about, they got the front of the face. Now we need to worry about the profile. So here we're going to have, if you're doing like a male, you may have a little bit more of a pronounced brow ridge, and then the skull will kind of go back. Or if you're doing a female, you can kind of bump this out, and then you can diminish these brow ridges just a bit. Holding down Shift to smooth. My smooth, it's going to be a little bit different than your default because I have smooth brush modifiers. I have it automatically set to weighted smooth mode of 1, which makes it smooth stronger. You can find that in your comma key in your brush palette if you want. Or you can just set the weighted smooth mode. And then this will get us the side of the head. And then we got the front of the head, back of the head, halfway down through here is going to be kind of where the jawline starts and also where the ear goes. Now the ear is going to be the brow line, which is going to be above your eyes. So here's your eye line, here's your brow line, here's your hairline, brow line, nose line, chin line, all about in here. And then about here is going to be your mouth line. So we've got our proportions generally set up. If you do want to go ahead and use like an insert mesh brush, we can do that. You can just grab a sphere and just pop that in there. And then, although, you know, maybe for the planes of the face, you want to do something more like a cube. So we can go through here and we can say, all right, you are our nose. And of course, you go through here and you just kind of move these polygons around to get what you're looking for. So again, if we did have a pronounced brow ridge like Henry Cavill style brow ridge, we could go through here and we could say, bam, he's got a serious brow ridge. You know, and then it goes back to the eyeball here. And we're always looking for that draft of the face as well. That kind of, you know, as your face goes from the front to the back, it's kind of wrapping around the underlying skull here. So, and then of course we have Dynamesh turned on, so we can control drag. Oh, did we turn Dynamesh on? Now we have Dynamesh turned on. So we can go through here and now we can just start smoothing. I'm going to drop this resolution down just a tiny bit. Let's drop it down, not up. Oh, there we go. And we got the face going, and then we got the lips, and we got the philtrum in here. And of course, you know, always feel free to go through and move your proportions around and kind of play around with how your face is going to end up looking. all that good stuff. And we got our cheekbones here. It's going to kind of go from this direction here. And again, we were talking about the jawline earlier. Oh, and the ear line as well. So we got the brow line straight back, and we got the nose line straight back. Our ear will fit somewhere in here, kind of at an angle. So we'll say angle is back. If we want an easier start, it's not difficult to model ear, but just in case you needed it, there are body parts you can just grab. You can grab an ear. Let's go to the other side. You just grab an ear from here. And you can go ahead and just, this can be your start. Of course, you can just mask that out and do what you need to do there, but generally speaking, that's the shape of the ear you're going to end up looking for. Let's go ahead and move this around just a tiny bit. And we need a neck here, so we'll go ahead and say, you know what, we'll do a cylinder 32 since we're not doing hard surface modeling just yet, although we can if you all want. We can put a neck in here, so we got you know, the cranium, it goes back to the neck, and that's going to go forward to a chest here. So we kind of elongate this out. Ta-da! And then we kind of got a chest going. Let's go ahead and reset this here so we can scale that out a bit. And generally speaking, we could say this is our rib cage here. Good enough. And you know, we can go ahead and correct this to put in a few shoulders in here and get the indication of where our chest is going to be and where our traps are going to be, and we can actually just go through here and say, okay, you know what? There's our traps. Here's our neck. Here's our head, and it's all Dynamesh. We can just control drag. I'm going to go ahead and do a deformation unify just to put him right in the middle of the scene, and again, we're actually dropping the resolution. This one we're dropping it rather severely, so let's set this back to 128, and then I'll hit unify because we're making it smaller, so it's going to Dynamesh a little bit harsher. There we go, something like that. And we've got a head going. So we've started a character, and I'm going to drop my smooth intensity down just a bit because again, we do have smooth stronger turned on. There we go. And we've got the basis of something. Of course, doesn't have to, I mean, this is kind of just shapes and forms and stuff, so it can still very much be whatever you want. You can go through here and you can kind of play around with the type of character you're making. Maybe you want it to, you know, be a very gaunt figure, or you can go through here with your inflate, and you can go, you know what, now he's a little heavier, and maybe you would diminish chin, or maybe play around with whatever you're looking for. Hey, Dodruku, thanks for showing up. We're just kind of playing around. We're having a little bit of fun. This isn't too terrible. Let's go with this. So, and of course, if you want to, you can always go back through your history. You can be like, you know what, I was liking more of this, or I liking more of this. And you can also just duplicate this off. So if you duplicate this off, that'll store this one here, and then we can go back to our kind of our base here, and then maybe we want to play around with one that is, you know, maybe this one has a little bit of tooth loss here. And getting a little old, cartilage starting to sag a bit. And we can start with some sort of a bald head in here. There we go. And you know what, we can also thin this out a bit, something like that. And we'll go ahead and duplicate this off. And one more. You know what, let's go, it's fine. Go in here, and we'll grab this, and we'll go ahead and scale this up. Now, if I scale it up, it's going to go away and towards that midline here. We're going to turn on LSIM. It's going to be local symmetry, and we'll kind of play around with this a bit. And you know what? Let's also grab this here. Just holding down Alt, and kind of resetting. This one I'm going to raise up that resolution just a bit. I wanted, when I'm doing organic stuff, I'll tend to keep it as low as possible but not so low that it's difficult to dial in just basic features. So that's something, this will be fine. And then, I don't know, what else can we do? Round it, make sure this is, we have our tooth cylinder here. We want to keep that nice and round. And again, you know, that draft from the front to the back and the side. So in here we are going to have, you know, we talked about our eye line. So our eye line will be through here, and then through the middle of this eye line is going to go to about the corners of the mouth. And we are playing around with the proportions of the face, so maybe it's not lining up exactly, you know, halfway down and blah, blah, blah. Those are just guidelines. And you know what? Let's do we can like do kind of a diminished cranium on this one if we want to, and have a little bit of fun with that. So we've got, you know, 3 basic variants in here that we go through and play with. Hey, Proletarian X, thanks for showing up. Good to be back. It's been a while. I always say I'm going to stream more, and then I never do. But we'll get something fun done today. So we'll turn this off, and then we can turn solo on. And then as we go through here, we can just kind of click and see if anything's kind of jumping out at us. This one seems fine. This one actually kind of reminds me. I'm going to go ahead and launch up Quadro Reference Viewer. I'm going to pull in some reference here. I'm going to say add local image. Artists. I like a good shell. This one here, Goliath head maybe. And these are all, you know what, I want individual images. So I'm just going to scroll through here. He's got some really interesting kind of gaunt old heads here that are just good to have up, and kind of, ooh, that's a cool one. These are neat. This, I suppose that's not Herman Munster, but one of those types here. I'll go ahead and say open. And now I can just have these just kind of floating around, and I can just be eyeballing them and see if there's anything interesting that kind of jumps out at me through here. And also keeps me a bit honest. So you know, I can play around and do some fun stuff, but I can always have some reference up that'll kind of keep me, because again, I don't do this much anymore. So the ability to kind of, you know, have stuff up, and also you can just have basic head reference up. So do a Google search for human head, and that should suffice. But I like to have something a little bit more interesting up if I can. So we're going to go through here, and we'll just go through and we'll start cutting in the features of the face here. And so again, we got the cheek. Now this ear is way up and out there, which I suppose is all right. We'll go ahead and keep this elongated, and we'll go ahead and tuck this in here. And this is getting a little out of control, so we can start making some minor corrections here. So this is going to come through, and it's going to curve inwards, and then this is going to pop out here, and we'll go ahead and use our clay brush to start building this up. You can use, for softer things, or for things that aren't like muscle buildup, I'll just use the clay brush, but you can use the clay buildup or clay tubes. I'm going to drop the Z intensity down just a bit, and that focal shift I'll put up towards 0. So it gives us, it's not quite so intensely stuttery. We'll go through here, and I'm going to use my Damien standard. You can use your standard with the high intensity if you want to, but I'm going to use Damien standard just to kind of cut in our features here. So you have your, you know what, let's do this. This will be fun. Load in our zygote body here. We don't need your nervous system or your guts. We'll go ahead and pop those out. Or your skin, but we do need your beautiful muscles. So we have here our sternomastoid or sternocleidomastoid. It's going to go from that little bump on the back of your skull all the way to your clavicle here, and then you're going to have a platysma over that. We'll go ahead and ignore that for now. And then you've got your traps over here, and then you've got your deltoid. So all of this stuff will just be basically blocking out. So we'll go ahead and say you, and then you got your hyoid bone up here and stuff like that, but we'll just kind of keep an eyeball on that. But this is basically what we're blocking out. And then you're going to have in your, your scapula back here, your infraspinatus, your teres major, and your teres minor. Going to be some small muscles here, and then I guess we'll talk about a little bit of the lats and then a little bit of the serratus anterior through here, and then maybe a little bit of the top part of the abs, and then your obliques that kind of tuck in there. So all these muscles here, we'll go through and block out really quickly. So again, like I said, you're going to have a little bump on your skull here. You also have a little occipital protuberance back here where your traps are going to go. And then down the middle here, you're going to have, and I used to teach anatomy. It's been a while, and again, I'm a little out of practice here, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. So in the back here, you're going to have kind of a divot where all the muscles are going to kind of fold in, and then you're going to have a spine here, and then you're going to have, I mean, this is a pretty severe divot, but you can always go back in here and you can start putting in your landmarky bones. So this is going to be your C7, and then, you know, you got your vertebrae going this way, and then you've got your, so here's your vertebrae is going to go around through here. So here's going to be your neck, and then you're going to have the vertebrae that goes around, and it's pretty rigid since it's going to go around your rib cage. And then you got your lumbar vertebrae, which is, we go BSH for our snake hook brush. And let's go ahead and turn on Sculptures Pro so we can go yank, and we can just pull that back through and start getting some geometry. And you can see, you know, got your lumbar, and then your cervical, and then your thoracic, and then your little sacrum in your pelvis area there. You know, still thinking about proportions here. We don't have to model the whole body. I wasn't intending to do any more than just the bust, but we can play around with this a little bit. So let's go in here. Let's hit W, and we're going to say for you are going to hit Y so we can toggle on, what's it called? The Transposed Line. This is always a fun one. Recently I had a YouTube comment that was like, why in the world would you ever use the Transposed Line? Well, this is a good reason. So if you go in here, it's great for measuring in ZBrush. Among other things, you can do some cool transpose modeling with it. But if we go in here to, oh yeah, let me link you to this. It's just zygotebody.com. There we go. Sorry about that. Cool, I'll check that out. Very cool. And you know what? We'll do a little bit of this too, you know, trying to go through here and basically, you know, you got a good block out in here. We're going to do this exact same process. Looks like you use a little bit of clay tubes, a little bit of clay buildup, and then we'll go through and we'll detail it up. Maybe not to this level, but you know what? Now that I see this, we'll actually go through and, you know, we'll certainly do this, but we'll also certainly do a little bit of fiber mesh. I think that'll be fun. But here in Z plugin, we can go over here to Transpose Master, and we can do, no, we can't. We're going to go in here to Preferences. We're not transpose mastering this, but we are going to do Preferences, Transpose Units, and let's remember how to do this. So we're going to say this is 1 unit. It's going to be basically our head length. Now he's going to be very kind of stretched and elongated. So this is going to elongate his whole body if I stick with this head measurement, but I think that'll be fine. We can make him a little elongated. So we're going to go from the chin to the top of the head. We're going to say it's going to be 1 unit, and we're going to set the unit unit scale calibration distance is going to be 1. Enter. Unit scale set units is going to be a head unit, and then we're going to say 4 minor ticks and then 1 major tick. And then the calibration distance again is 1. So now if I go through here, you're going to see bottom of the chin to the top of the head is 1 unit, and then in here you have 1, 2, 3, 4, so that's going to divide it into fourths, so at least you have a midpoint and then 2 points around that. So hold on just a second, let me go to my, here we go. So now we have heads, so we can kind of, this could kind of keep us honest when we are going and doing proportion work. So if I go through here, we can just, whoa, I'm just grabbing these outside rings, not the inside rings. And so from here we have 1, 2, 3, 4 heads is going to be kind of the crotch area, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 heads to the bottom of the feet. Now that's a heroic proportions, so it's not 7.5 heads, but at least that'll kind of get us where we're looking. Now you can continue just using Sculptures Pro and just dragging out the little shapes like we did there, but also you know, you could use insert mesh brushes and you could block out like a base body. In fact, we've done that. Or on my ArtStation page, or if you go to ArtStation Learning, now that I think about it, I always forget I did this. You can go in here to the Intro to ZBrush series, and there's a whole series. So if you're part of the whole ArtStation crew, you can go through there and you can have a little bit of fun just going through the ZBrush basics. I also do have on my YouTube channel, if you go in here to playlists, there's a kind of a new Intro to ZBrush ideation, ZBrush ideation updated for 2020. Here's a full playlist on just kind of getting started. So that's another kind of a getting started guide right in there. Can you give me some tips to work in this sector 3D? I have, speaking of ArtStation, just for that, I mean, not really. It's kind of a broad question. I don't know that I'd have the best answer for you, but I do have, do I need a college degree, motivation, inspiration, 2D versus 3D? It's not versus, it's just 2D and 3D working together in harmony, and then how to break into the games industry. So if any of these seem interesting to you, you can certainly check out my blog. And again, I don't really answer any questions, or I don't have any good answers for any of that. But if you want my nearly worthless opinion, you can check that out. So to go ahead and stretch this body along here, so basically this body, I'm just looking to hit that point here. So I'm going to hit, well, I'm going to go ahead and mask out, because the head and the neck, I think, are pretty solid. But this body needs to be elongated a bit. So we're just going to shift. We're just going to pull that down so that now we're going to hit that midpoint here. So now we got one head down, 2 heads down is going to be our chest line, 3 heads down is going to be kind of our belly button, the top of the pelvis, 4 heads down is going to be the bottom of the pelvis, which again, that sacrum is going to hit, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, although when we're moving, oh no, that's right. So there we go. Now we've got a little bit better proportions for him, although I do believe, let's go ahead and turn off Sculptures Pro here, that probably that neck got a little bit too stretchy for my taste. Like, I want him to have a long neck, but not like crazy. So we'll go ahead and put the traps and that shoulders back in. So yeah, we got start of our long boy. So we'll go ahead, you know what, we'll kind of leave him cadaverous a little bit. I think that might be fun. We can always change that, but for now, we'll stick with this. We'll stick with the plan. So again, like we were saying, we can go in here to clay tubes or clay buildup, and we can start using that to kind of block in our muscles too. So what I'll use is I'll use like clay tubes or clay buildup, again with the focal shift turned down to 0, maybe the intensity turned down just a bit, although you'll have to play around with that, see what works for you. And we can kind of use this, whoa, to kind of go through here. And or you can just use the clay brush, or you can just use the standard brush. I'm not going to tell you how to work. Here's our C7, and then our trapezius is going to go around that and kind of go through here and twist and go down the middle of the body like so. If you want more, if you want to kind of sketch this instead, again, Damien standard, Damien standard to go through here and be okay, here's my one head down. Now nose to chin here, this is again, these distances are getting stretchy, but you know, we're just having a little bit of fun. So nose to chin here to that sternal notch right here, and then you're going to have your sternum through here, and that's going to be your chest line. So again, 1 head down, 2 heads down is going to be your chest line here, and this is where your about where your pecs are going to go, and then this is going to go 3 parts to your pecs. Let's see if Zygo Body has anything on that. Not really, but about halfway down your clavicle-ish, and then down your sternum, and then also a little attachment on the portion of your rib cage there, and that's actually going to go into, if we turn off all these, we can actually go through and we can do a little bit of investigation. So we can click on this, and then we can say, you know what, get rid of all the other muscles, and you're going to see it's about just below the top ball of the humerus there. You're going to have maybe a 3-finger, 4-finger, 3-finger width where it attaches, and then it's also going to loop over. So these top muscles are going to go to the bottom, and then these bottom strands are going to go up here. So, and if you want to kind of visualize that, we can go, you know what, let's knock this back a little bit, and then in here we can say, give me a sphere. And then let's hit Y so we can go back to the gizmo. And then let's do a quick, under your split menu, under subtool split, we're going to say split mass points. And then through here, we can say you are now a bone. So you are going to be bona fide. So we're going to say W, and then control tap this, and then we're going to control drag this out just. And you could use the modeler for that, but why? Why would we do that when we can simply just control drag out? So now here is our humerus. Now the arm is going to be basically here, and then when you put your arms down at your side, your medial epicondyle of your humerus is going to kind of touch the bottom of your rib cage here, so that's about right. If you want to visualize that, you can just drop another cylinder in here, and then this humerus is a bit much, right? So let's do a quick group by normals. Let's drop that max angle down. There we go. So we can get some polygroups going, and then we'll do a quick geometry modify topology mirror and weld, and then now we can use the modeler Q mesh, polygroup all, hover over a face, hold down shift. It's going to pull along there, and we can thin that out just a bit. Now that we have that, we are talking about the epicondyle. So here's the lateral and the medial here, and you can just go and then ta-da, and that can be our indication of that stuff. So anyway, now we were talking about putting muscles on here. You can actually make a muscle brush if you're so inclined, but that's a bit much. We're just having fun. That starts getting a little bit into stuff that isn't really necessarily that useful just yet. So again, clay brush or clay buildup, you can start knocking this back because our traps don't fill in this space here. We've got our clavicle, and again, just like in the face, we're looking for draft. So we're going to go here to the neck and then back here. So this is going to be your shoulder girdle, and so you have your clavicle that comes back, and then you have your scapula, which has an acromion process. We'll go back to our reference here, and you're going to see here's our scapula. You got this big blade here, and then you've got the arm that kind of comes out, and then you're going to have your acromion process. You have a coracoid process in here too that attaches to some armpit muscles that we'll get to in a second. But basically what we're looking for is this landmark right here, and then I wish I could like tilt down so you can see this a little bit better, but so here's the clavicle, and then here's your shoulder girdle, and then all of this kind of makes up how you can kind of move stuff around, and those are our bony landmarks. So you know what, I'll just keep this up for myself. So you go through here, and again you get your C7, your cervical 7 spine here, and then it goes up, and so when you tilt your head down, you can kind of feel that knob at the base there. That's that one right here. And then from here, we'll go ahead and turn our muscles back on, so I can, again, it's just all about keeping myself honest. I want to lie, and more importantly, I want to learn. So I want to make sure that I'm vaguely accurate. It doesn't have to be super accurate because, again, we're having fun. But as long as you know the rules and you can kind of work within the rule set, you tend to be a little bit more successful, and then you can kind of play around with proportions and stuff like that and have it be a little bit more of a successful endeavor than just going willy-nilly, breaking rules you didn't know existed. Those tend to not be so successful. So again, we were talking about our pecs. So we have our sternum here, and so I've got one head down, and then nose to chin is going to be the top of the sternal notch, and then have our chest line. The sternum is going to be about half of our rib cage, so one sternum down, two sternums down-ish, half of the rib cage here, and then we've got our that arm of the scapula is going to go over here, and that acromion process is going to meet that clavicle, which is going to be kind of Cupid's bow shaped, and then you've got the head of the humerus here, which again, this humerus, very thick humerus, so you know we could temper that. Q mesh, polygroup all, and then you can just hold down shift and we'll just go pull along that surface normal. So we have a pec. Now this pec, well, this arm also looks a little bit low. It's going to sit up in here, and you know what? Let's move these arms out just a bit, because if we are going to do kind of an A pose, we want to make sure we got plenty of room to put clothing and stuff in here. I don't necessarily need to do a T pose for like rigging or anything like that, but we can say, you know what? Let's do an A pose here. So that should work. So through here, we can go, let's go back to our Damien standard brush. And again, we have our clavicle here, like so. And then we've got the sternal portion of our pectoralis major, and then we've got our rib cage that's sitting right through here. So here's our rib cage. Off of this rib cage is going to be our serratus anterior. So this is going to be our serratus, and the serratus is going to come around here, and it's actually going to attach to the inside back of this scapula. So again, go through here. There's our serratus anterior, and if we go through here and we go get rid of the muscles, you can see all along here, and these are going to be a little bit more straight, and then your obliques are going to go down from this angle. So from your rib cage to the back inside of your scapula is where those are going to hang out. So, and again, you don't have to get everything perfect. You just need indications and you need direction. So these are also going to be a little bit more bulbous, and you're not going to see these on very lean people. You're not going to see a whole lot of serratus anteriors hanging out. But then from the obliques, those are going to kind of come down in this direction. Maybe you could call it an oblique direction. And then those will kind of feather, or these fingers here will interlock with your stuff, your stuff. And then on the rib cage here, so I think on males the rib cage tends to kind of be more of a 45-degree angle, and then on females it can kind of be a little bit of a little shallower angle there. Don't quote me on that. Again, it's been a while, but something like that. So we can get a little bit more of an arch here. And that's probably vaguely correct. So you can also go through here if you feel like this pec separation is a little much. Go through here with your pinch brush and just pinch those things together. Now we were talking about the pec. So here's the ball of the pec, and again, this is. I'll go ahead and smooth that out. Smooth. Drop that intensity down. It's actually a little bit more like that. And then we can actually go through and we can pinch this if we want to. All sorts of useful tricks with the pinch brush. So we're going to go through here, and I'm going to use my Move Acu, which is basically the move brush with your preferences gone. C plugin gone. Brush docked. Curve Acu. And I have a brush saved with that setting. So we can go through here and we can just kind of pull this pec muscle out. Now when we were talking earlier, and how did Dynamesh get turned off? So we got this, and then again we have, here's our rib cage, so we have a little bit of this pec kind of sticking on that rib cage, and a little bit of this pec kind of sticking along your sternum, and then your clavicle here, and then these from the clavicle portion are going to go to the bottom here, and then it's going to kind of go to the sternum portion, which is going to go and start going up, and these are going to go to the top, and then the very bottom is going to go to the very top, so they're going to kind of twist over each other. So if you're looking for which way your striations of your pec are going, that's just a decent indication of how that's going to work. Now, of course, all of this is going to be covered up by your deltoid. So we'll go ahead and say split mass points, pull this in here, and sometimes if I'm playing it safe, I'll do a quick save, whoops, which if that is 9, and then I can just go through here on my quick saves and just reload. Oh boy, I got a bunch of, so here's my latest. And we'll just reload it from the quick save. And I'll do that whenever I'm popping a lot of subtools off. I'll go through and just do a quick save and reload. Hey John Yu, cool, awesome. Yeah, again, it's been a while, but I remember enough anatomy to get by this morning, maybe. Is there a way to save alphas for loading on startup? For sure. Same thing with brushes. So if you want to load up alphas and brushes on startup, just go to your ZBrush 2020 folder. So if you want to go into the comma key to your lightbox, that's going to be under Z alphas or Z brushes, and that's going to be like, oh, I just want to grab an alpha real quick. You go in here and you just grab an alpha, and you can organize them by folder, because when you go into Z alphas, for example, it's all organized by folders however you want. However, if you want to do startup, you simply go to Z startup, and then you can go into, where is that, alphas, and then if you load them in here, these are going to be these will show up at startup and alpha. Same thing with brushes. Z startup brushes, brush presets is what it's called. Anything you put in here will start up with ZBrush, and then you can assign hotkeys to them. If you really want to get crazier, you can actually change the default, and that's going to be under Z data. So if you go under Z data alphas. These are the default alphas that come into ZBrush. If you don't need any of them, you can just delete them, although I would be careful with that. And just like when you're doing brush presets in this folder, these are the ones that load into ZBrush by default. So save this off, have like a brush presets backup or copy, and then go in here and make the changes that you want and save over these brushes. And then whenever you start up ZBrush, it won't be a brush preset addendum. It'll be like my smooth brush, which has the weighted smoothness set to 1 by default. So all that. Oh, and it's not working for you. That's kind of weird. That's how I would do it. I'm not sure why that wouldn't work. Yeah, and also for alphas in particular, maybe make sure that they're a depth of 16 grayscale. I don't know that that makes any difference, but it'll give you the best results. Something like that. And if I miss anything, just give me a second. Cool. How to merge two subtools without losing details. You shouldn't lose anything just by merging. Now, if you're talking about merging two subtools and then dropping the resolution because you're going to dynamesh two subtools together, that would just be working on, like if I'm going to do hands, I would go through here and I would add hands. And split those off. And then, I would just work on these separately, and I could even dynamesh them. However, if I dynamesh them at this resolution, these things might have a tendency to stick together. But even with this quad geometry, I'd be fine. Work on them at a resolution separately until they get comparable to the resolution of the body, and then when I merge them and dynamesh them together, it won't make any difference at all. So yeah, you shouldn't lose any detail just by merging. If you're losing detail, I'm not sure what would cause that necessarily, because again, you're not changing any vert positions or anything. So we're going to go through here. Now our deltoid is going to be a 3-pronged attack. It's going to go from the side of the clavicle here, down about halfway down, surprisingly far down your humerus here, and then along the back of the, let's go ahead and always call back to your reference. If you don't know, look it up. So along the clavicle here, and then around that acromion process, and then a pretty healthy portion of that spine of the scapula. That will be our triangle muscle, or our deltoid. And of course, it's going to inherit, since we inserted it on the, let's crank the intensity up a bit. Since we inserted it on a mesh that had Dynamesh, it inherited those properties of that tool. So now we have this overlap. So now you are going to get kind of that, there's like a little, this is actually a little bit too far in maybe, but something like this. Now this is actually going to curl forward just a bit. It gives us a little bit more room for the triceps in the back. And then we got the arms and stuff like that. So for the arms, you know what, we can just take this and we can just inflate it. And this can be kind of our working arm here. So now, for example, like we were talking earlier, am I able, let's go ahead and stretch these out just a bit. Am I able to merge two things together and not lose resolution? Well, this is Dynamesh resolution 216. This is Dynamesh resolution 216. This doesn't have any Dynamesh. However, if I take this, hold down shift, shoot it to the top, and I just do my hotkey for merge, which is subtool merge down, merge all these together, they are going to inherit all the tool properties, so I can just control drag and like that. However, before I do that, I don't lose resolution on this. It just exists, and I can always just go through and I can pop this back out again, just control shift A and split this off if I want to. Or I can just control drag and Dynamesh, and then now I have all this Dynamesh together. And then clay brush, or clay buildup, go through here, and we got our biceps and our brachialis here, and then we got our triceps in the back, and this is where you can, if you want to, just go through here and you can just kind of use this as a muscly appendage. If you want a little bit more leeway and not those polarized caps, we do a split mass points, and then we just do a quick ZRemesh. Well, let's not do a ZRemesh at 5,000. Let's do half a tapis size down to 0. This will give you just a very general kind of shape that'll smooth a lot nicer. So you can go through here and be okay, triceps, numero uno is a scientific term. Triceps numero dos. And then, so if we go around the back here, you're going to have your long head and your lateral head, and then I thought, oh, there it is, medial head. So you've got 3 heads here. So here's the little medial head popping out, and then here's the long head, and then your lateral head on this side. So, but you can just indicate that with just a quick, you don't have to do muscles for everything. You just go like, okay, here's my medial head. Medial epicondyle, medial head, medial towards the middle of your body. And then that coracoid process we were talking about earlier, I think that's what it's called. We strip our muscles out, and then we look at this little finger doodad hanging off the inside of your scapula here, and then we bring some of our muscles back. You're going to see that attaches there, the coracobrachialis, and that's going to be kind of a little armpit muscle that you can indicate through here. But, here's your pec, and then here's your coracobrachialis, and then your tricep a little bit forward, and all that good stuff. And then when you're ready to rock and roll, if I merge this down, oh, it does have Dynamesh because we put it on a Dynamesh mesh, and then we merged it down. So we can still merge these down, and we're off to the races. And then the brachialis is actually going to go all the way through the body. So it's going to go here to here, which is interesting, I suppose. So you keep moving these muscles in. We have our brachialis here, and it's going to go all the way through, and you will see it towards the bottom underneath the bicep, kind of down through this way. So it goes all the way through there. So you can kind of indicate that down here, and then of course up here, and then you got your triceps. And now you're going to have the rhythm of the body is going to be kind of. Do I have a way to draw? You know what? I need drawing tools. Okay, let's go out of edit mode. Let's grab a dot stroke in this. So basically, and I don't need a body being drawn out. I need a simple brush. And I need it to be a dot stroke, and I need it to be an alpha. There we go, something like that. So basically, you're going to have kind of the rounds here. So you've got your humerus, and then here's your bone in here. So you've got the nice roundness of the muscle, and then you got the roundness of the muscle, and then you're going to have the flatness of tendons and ligaments, and then you're going to have the pointiness of bone. So if you can kind of just interdisperse, I mean, in ways that make sense, these kind of ideas, here's a nice flat, and then the roundness of the muscle takes over, and then you got your brachioradialis, and then it's going to go down to kind of a pointiness of a bone here, kind of having these kind of mixed around, and then you've got pointiness of a bone, a corner of a bone, and then you've got the roundness of a muscle. All of that stuff will kind of help your shapes a bit. So we'll go through here, and let's change that back to drag rect. Go in edit mode, control and declare canvas, and turn that off. So, okay. Now this has all just been a kind of a technical walkthrough, and it has done nothing for what kind of character we're making. What are we trying to message with this character? What's his story? What's his what makes him interesting? From a glance, what are you trying to message to your user? And that's all stuff. Go back to your archetypes and your TV tropes and stuff like that. So you can be like, is he a king? Is he a jester? Is he a what am I trying to message here? That's probably far more important than the technical aspects. Although they all play together nicely. I shouldn't say that. They all work together to, again, message. One is more messaging functionality and feasibility, and then one is messaging what your character is, which is super important, obviously. And I don't have answers to any of those questions. I'm just kind of playing around. So let's say I kind of wanted to do, for some reason, just kind of a gaunt, I don't know if he's an anti-hero, or is he stylish? Is he funny? And this is where you can kind of go around, and I've kind of been neglecting his head. And you want to basically work on the body and the round. You don't want to spend too much time in any one area. So you can go through here. And again, you can always just play around with your proportions. Just go in here with a big old move brush and just kind of go through here and do what you need to do. If you need to kind of broaden any areas out, or you can mask and transpose or mask and gizmo around, certainly feel free to do that. And we got a big hole left over here. So that scapula we were talking about earlier, this is where the infraspinatus, teres major, and teres minor. And the teres, damn, you know, I used to know this stuff. There is going to be one interesting one. Is the teres major is actually going to go from the inside bottom all the way around to the almost the side front of that humerus, and the teres minor. Let's see here, teres major, and then the teres minor is going to be a little offshoot here, and then your infraspinatus is going to go around to the back. So that was the only interesting one. I shouldn't say that. They're all interesting, but this teres major is going to be the one that kind of does the little loop-de-loop up in here. And then the infraspinatus is going to be a little bit more visible, and then the teres major is going to be a little thing. And then your traps, let's go ahead and kill these here. Boop, beep, boop, bop, and bring all my muscles back. Traps are going to sit on top of everything, and let's go through here, the clay buildup, and then, yeah, right along here. So from our scapula, and then it's going to go around our scapula here, and then down and kind of cover up these to about the mid back. And then of course you're going to have your lats, and your lats are going to tuck around on the inside of your arm too. A lot of stuff going on in your armpit. Maybe that's why it gets so hot in there. A lot of muscles attaching and doing stuff. And then your lats are just going to go through here. You're going to the lats actually get pretty thin. They're going to be thickest up here at the top, and then as they go down your body, the shape of the lats is a little bit misleading, because if you look at an écorché model, you're going to be like, oh yeah, lats make this shape. But then if you go and look at a bodybuilder or anybody who has isn't just stripped and scientific model, you're going to notice that you're actually going to have a bulge here from your serratus anterior. So this is going to be a bulge that goes this way because your serratus anterior is going through and attaching to the back of your scapula like we talked about earlier. So this is actually going to be a bulge this way, which that's the direction your lats don't go, because your lats, yes, your lats are going this way, but you are going to have a bulge forcing those lats to kind of make this shape. And then you got your obliques coming around, and we'll just go ahead and skip that. Again, we're just going to keep him. I mean, we got a little bit of obliques up here, and then that's going to go to your obliques that sit on top of your pelvis there. But again, let's get back to this face here. This is all fun. So, middle of the skull outwards. Now we do have like the orbit of the skull. We can kind of pull this down, and that'll kind of be where the eyeballs are going to end up sitting. And we'll get to the eyeballs in a bit, but we are going to go in here to our Damien standard brush. So Damien standard brush is good for cutting in. So if you want to like cut in like the brow ridge here, and go through on the side of the nose here in our labial folds, corners of the mouth here, and then chin, like so. And then jawline straight down. And then you can also hold down Alt. So if you go into the Damien standard brush, you hold down Alt, you can actually pull out to a surface like this if you wanted to like pronounce a ridge or something like that. Speaking of that, I did a bunch of that for recently. There's 3 playlists in here. Actually, probably easier to look at in here. Mechanical Skull series. So in here, I have the hard surface. If you go and click up here, you got like 17 videos on like how to make the hard surface version of the skull. And then if you keep going, you have Substance Painter. So after it's all been game res and baked, you can go through here and you can paint it up. And then rendering and exporting to Sketchfab. So we can go through here. And let me see if I can load this up here. Scroll down, zoom in. There we go. So now we have, so what is it? Hold on, Alt. Yeah, move the lights around. And so basically, this is just a quick ZBrush model. This is kind of like a ZBrush concept sketch that you can go through, and you can put in Painter, and you can put a little subsurface scattering on the teeth, and put in lighting and stuff like that. You can go through here and do some emissive for the eyes and have fun with it. But basically, you start out with an organic skull. If we scroll up, scroll. Go through here. Sizzle video. Yeah, so you start with an organic skull, and then you just go through here and you use stuff like the Damien Standard and the H Polish and Trim Dynamic, and you go through and you just hard surface the heck out of this thing so that eventually you arrive at, geez, sorry, slow moving, there we go. So eventually you arrive at kind of the block out of your hard surface shape like this. But anyway, if you're interested in that series, check out this link. Cool. Thank you, John Yu. Yeah, exactly. So if you actually do want to mess around with a skeleton, it's a good point. There is in the tool menu, you have this Brian Kingsline anatomy model, and this is great just to kind of play around with. So if you want to just strip the bones out, you have a whole skeleton here. And in fact, if I want to keep myself honest, you can also play around with, like, let me grab all this, Control-Shift-A. You know, I could split this and append it. Might just make my life easier if I just go through here and say, you know what, brush, create insert mesh, new, and then very quickly I can just go here and I can say yoink, yoink, and now I've got a skull. So we'll go ahead and say split mass points, and then go into transparency mode. So now you can see, you know, and this is, I think, is a female skull, but close enough. Landmarks are still there. You can see the kind of liberties I'm taking with some of his long proportions and stuff, and the diminished cranium in the back we talked about, and kind of pointing out this big knob on the top of his head here, you know. But, you know, it's also good just to kind of keep yourself, like I said, honest, and making sure that, you know, your teeth and, you know, your wrapping, you're getting that depth, that draft of the face there, all that stuff. And you can also use this as kind of a visual element too, or if you wanted to go crazy and just be like, you know what, we're gonna make Skullman, Skeletor style, and you can have a little bit of fun doing that type of thing. Or if you wanted to give him like a hard surface skull faceplate, that's a real easy way to start. But we'll go ahead and hide that skull here. And also, you know, save often. You can hit 9 on your keyboard and do a quick save while you're saving, or you can save iteratively. Just I don't like to do a file save. I like to do a good old tool save as. Can you guys see that menu? Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Restart ZBrush 3 times for it to show up. Interesting. Huh. Cool. Yeah, 16-bit is good for alphas. Cool, cool. ArtStation artwork. Can I have some feedback? Sure. Don't see anything in here. We have free update to ZBrush 2020.1.1, which I'm on. I'm actually updated to that, and it's actually pretty easy to update. If you go to, I hope this is correct. There is now for a full point, or is it for a point releases? What I'll do is I'll do the Z upgrader right here, and that does a pretty good job, and you don't have to, it doesn't blow away like your custom menus or anything like that. But for full releases, where it goes from like ZBrush 20 to ZBrush 21 or something like that, that's where I would probably, I don't know, sometimes they'll tell you to do a full install, but I'll leave it up to the Pixologic wizards who do that stuff for a living. So we kind of have an indication of where our landmarks are and how things are going to work, and this gets a little bit tricky in the eyeballs. You can't just go through and sculpt it. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but sometimes kind of putting some basic shapes in here can be helpful, so I'm going to go ahead and leave that alone for now. Yeah, we're doing okay. So I'm going to go back to my standard brush again. We raised that intensity up when we turned our lazy radius off, so we can go through and we can just have a little bit more, we can attack a little bit harder than just kind of being wishy-washy and being too soft with our decision making here. Give me a second. I need to make sure that okay. Sorry about that. So anyway, we got our nose here, and we got our philtrum, and then our lips. So some of this may be tricky, and you know what sometimes can help? Oh, you know, another thing is the bottom of this is really where this angle happens. So if you take the bottom of your, beneath the kind of the, between your lip and your chin, and you go around to the side, that's where your jaw makes that angle. A lot of times, you know, just by default, for some reason, I'll make the jaw like this, you know, which is, I guess, a stylistic choice, but it's also an incorrect choice. So if you're going to play around proportions, certainly do that, but within reason. This is a little bit more where your jaw would end up. So go through here, and we'll start fleshing this guy out. So he does a gaunt, and I do have some gaunt reference up from Jordu Shell. Check out his website, Shell Studio. Or his Instagram. He's really amazing, and I like looking at the traditional guys when I do just like basic head reference, just because they've solved a lot of the why is this shape appealing? What am I trying to emphasize? As opposed to just getting. I mean, it's good to get. Don't misquote me on this. It is good to use just human reference and to use like 3ds-K and 1024 and just do like real human study for sure. But it's also fun to kind of see how the pros go through and do their thing. Me not being one of them. I don't really make humans for a living. I mostly do documentation now. But, so we got on the side of the head, we got some chewing muscles. And then you got your zygomatic arch, and then you've got some jaw masseter muscles here. And then you've got, we're just again, just dialing in a little bit of this face, and we can start refining a bit. Now, we are going to start running out of resolution quickly, so if I want to play around with this head separately, we can certainly just grab this head about here-ish and go ahead and split that off, and then re-Dynamesh, and just, but you know what? I do want to raise that resolution up on the head, but the body, I want to keep that lower, so maybe I'll keep that at 216. If you get these little frilly things, you can hold down Shift and you can use Sculptors Pro, and you can kind of get rid of those, and then you can just re-Dynamesh, it'll get rid of those things. An alternative to that is you can just manually go through and do a Geometry Modified Topology close holes. I like to do a quick mirror and weld, and then Control tap here, and then you can just, you know what you could do? You could simply, you can hit Y and then E, and this is going to be transpose modeling. You can pull in a little bit of a shelf there. But another thing you could do, now that I think about it, I might like this better. You can go through here and you can do like a masking. We're going to mask our border, invert that, and then hit Y so we can go back to Gizmo. We can just kind of pull up and maybe scale in a little bit just to kind of build in a little bit of that. And you can actually go through here, you can do a little polish by feature to smooth those out, and then when you subdivide, you won't get any crinklies, or if you do, they're a little bit more manageable. But I'll go ahead and turn off Sculptors Pro and we'll re-Dynamesh. Anyway, that was probably not that useful, but just in case. So, we got a clay brush, and we got an earlobe, and we got your helixes of your ear, your helixes and your anti-helixes, and your all the little parts that make up your ear. And basically, we're gonna do this. We're gonna say this swoop, this question mark swoop, kind of goes into the head, and then you're gonna have a little knobby right through here, and then you're gonna have a hole that goes way in here to your auditory meatus, and then so this is going to kind of swoop down, and then you're going to have this going to kind of swoop in, and then you're going to have a little lump through here, and then these, sometimes these can be pretty flared out quite a bit. That kind of depends on the person. Now, and also, what also depends on the person is if your earlobes are attached, or if they're just hanging free. We'll stick with hanging free for now, but feel free to do what you want. And of course, you can go through here and you can use Transpose. You can use a move brush. You can use Sculptors Pro. And this is going to be, so this is going to be kind of a bump out and then kind of a swoop in. And again, just go grab some reference. I got some reference up. Just again, keep myself honest. That can be the start of our ear. And we could, of course, move these things around as needed, but I think that'll work. So now we do have this kind of severe orbit, which is okay. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But now I need to start worrying about getting these eyelids going. You can go through here with your Damien Standard, and you can just like hold down Alt. Same thing with the lips. You can go through here, hold down Alt, and start pulling out like where the lips kind of tuck into the body here. Let's go ahead and load up a little bit of Photoshop. And also, we'll do a little bit of draw over because, 2D and 3D work together in harmony. So let's make sure I'm recording this because that screen doesn't look right. something like that should work. Okay, so so new, we'll say 1200 by 955. Brush. Now it's probably blowing your eyeballs out. Let's dumb that down just a little bit. So when we were working, we were talking, oh boy. Oh, smooth is way up. Let's just turn that off. So we were talking, and let's also do our flow at like 50. You know what, we can turn this down to 7.5. So we basically went through here and we sliced off that side of the cranium here, and then we just kind of mushed this out to the bottom, and then halfway down here we also kind of scooted this cranium out to the back, and then halfway down we have our jawline here. So this is the start of our face, and we have the midline of our face here, and we have our hairline halfway down, so bottom of the head here we have the eyeball here. So here's our eye line, and then halfway through that cranium we kind of have that brow line here. And then through here we have our hairline, brow line, nose line, chin line. So this is where our nose line is going to end up here, and this kind of come out this way. Let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit so we can get a little bit more fidelity. There we go. So now we have this here is going to be kind of where our orbit kind of sits, and then in here you're going to have your eyeball. So on either side, let's go ahead and drop this opacity down because I'm already getting nasty. There we go. We'll clean this up a little bit. So going through here, again, we're going to have our brow line here, and then this is going to be on both sides of our brow line, and then your orbit is going to be a big bony thing here, and then you're going to have your eyeballs kind of sitting in your orbit like so, and then around that eyeball is going to be your eyelids, obviously. And that's what's going to close around there, and your eyelids are going to have thickness and stuff, and they're going to go around your eyeball, so it's going to go, again, that draft of the face is constantly curving. So here's our nose we were talking about. So here, and then we have our mouth cylinder, so middle of the eye straight down, middle of the eye straight down. It's kind of the corners of the mouth, but again, your mouth is going to wrap around that here. And you may kind of look like a smile, but you know, the corners of the mouth, and then I'm going to open this mouth a little bit. Here's the middle, here's the philtrum. So here we have the upper lip, and then tucking into that is going to be the bottom of the mouth, and then there's that between the mouth and the chin here, and if you take this around, that's where that jaw is going to make that corner. So now we have our cheekbones here. So here's a sweep of our cheekbone, and that's going to go to your brow, which top of the brow, bottom of the nose is our ear kind of sitting here. And again, we got, here's Lumpy and Swoopy and anti-Swoopy, and then ear hole, and then there you go. Now we've got an ear. The hairline is going to be through here, and it's going to kind of follow that temporal line here, and then you're going to have your sweet sideburns go here to Muttonchops, like so. And then, you know, this can kind of be, I don't know, maybe folded over, depending on where the part is from the other side here. And then now you've got cheekbone, your labial folds here, you got little nodes at the corner of the mouth, and then this is going to be your chin, like so. And then the neck is going to come out back because we know we've got the cranium here. And it's going to go back to the neck and then swoop forward for the chest. And then you got your lumbar and then your sacrum and all this stuff. And then there's your arm, like so. Lateral, medial, epicondyle, pec. So one head down, two head down, chest line. Here's the pec coming over here and swooping around. And then here's the traps. And then here's the deltoid, clavicle halfway down. Here's the tricep, bicep, brachioradialis, corner of the bone, and then you're going to get, here's your, and the obliques we were talking about earlier. So here's the serratus anterior, and then your obliques come down, and then it's going to kind of bulge out on the male. It's going to kind of bulge out here. So you've got here's your rib cage, and then here's your pelvis, a little more boxy, kind of straight up and down, and then your on the male it's going to kind of look like this, and then your pelvis is going to kind of bulge out over that, and then here's your obliques and your chest and stuff like that. You got a little bit more inset hips. On the female, your chest is going to be a little bit narrower, Tips are going to be a little bit wider. So this is going to be a little bit of a smoother transition. So you kind of have this shape, a little more of a violin as opposed to, you know, this kind of shape here. Yeah, so we got the head, basic construction of the head, and then you've got cartilage here, and this is basically like where you want to put your kind of shadows, you know. So you got, let's say, light coming in from this direction, so you can kind of go through here and be like, okay, the corners of the mouth are going to be pretty dark. Inside here is going to probably be pretty dark. Underneath here is going to be pretty dark where that kind of skin folds over, and this is the orbit, that socket. Here it's probably going to be pretty dark on this side, and let's go ahead and let's go nuts. So this is going to kind of follow that orbit as well. So on either side here, you're going to have a little bit of that, what's this called? Your eyebrow. And then you have a little highlight here for the nose, and then on this side, this is going to be kind of filled in. So you're going to have, and also when you talk about, okay, so here's light direction, and then here's the highlight, and then here's the halftone. It's going to be kind of darkest along here, and then you're going to have the shadow, cast shadow, and it's going to be really dark here, and then it's going to kind of maybe get a little brighter if it's not sunlight. And then also the bounce light is going to cause this halftone to be the darkest, because that bounce light from your surface is going to allow a little bit, not quite as dark as a shadow on this side here. And then this will be, boy, look at that shading. Isn't that great? That's amazing. Like that. So taking that, you can go through here, and then now, you know, put this on the darker side and this on the darker side, and you can even indicate, like, you know, possibly where cast shadows go, and shadow from the lip and shadow from the upper eyelid, and then even highlight from the eye, and then shadow from the eyeball here, and then all that stuff. Now, taking all of that in consideration and constructing in 2D, you get that for free when you go into ZBrush. So everything, all those decisions we've been making, and even stuff as simple as, well, it's simple in 3D, such as symmetry and perspective and casting a shadow, it's all just done. So we can actually use this to our advantage in 2D as well as 3D. So if we want to do a little bit of exploration and investigation, ain't nothing stopping us. So we'll go through here, and I'm just going to kind of, you know, we're indicating where the orbit of that eye is, and that's going to dictate where we kind of have our eye bags hanging out. But we're also going to talk about possibly using like insert mesh brushes to simplify, or at least give us a little bit more control over the eyeball. So again, temporarily, I'm just going to kind of hollow this out, and then we're going to go through here and we're going to pop in a couple spheres, and we're going to say split mask points. Push this back in. Now, for certain, I would do this for a stylized object. This character, he has style and he has moxie, but he's, I wouldn't necessarily call him super stylized. We could actually make him hyper real if we wanted to, but we'll say that's about where the eyes are going to go. Interesting thing about the eyeballs is they don't really change that much between people. They tend to stay within like a millimeter from really, really big people to really small people. Eyes don't change that much for adults after you've kind of grown into them. And even when you're a baby, they're big, so they actually kind of stay the same for a long time. So here we got the eyes, and we got to get that big brow ridge, and you can play around with this brow ridge if you don't want it quite that big, or you want to over crank it and get some cast shadows on here. I'll leave that up to you. But now we have our eyeball now, so let's just call that our eyeball. And if you want to, you can go in here and rename it and say, and then if you want to also just make quick sure it's mirror and weld, then we can duplicate this off. And this is where we can get into a little bit of, let's use trim curve. So if we go through here, we're going to take that upper eyelid, we're going to trim that off, we're going to go back to our eyeball, duplicate it off, and we're going to go ahead and trim out a lower eyelid, although that's not as important. And now we can use this. So if we go through here, just like we did before, we can go through and we can use the Q mesh polygroup all, and just hold down shift to kind of pull along those surface normals, because we do need a little bit of thickness. So there's our eyeball, and then here's our upper eyeballs. So now we have at least geometry we can push around, as opposed to sculpting, which is fine, but again, excuse me, this might just get over some pretty ridiculous allergies here. I'm getting allergy shots. I thought I was like ahead of the curve, and then I got stomped late February. So here, and we're going to go around here, and then now these. Now, kind of looking at my reference here, he's got a droopy eye, which doesn't generally happen. Normally, like if you go straight across, the lower inside is going to be a little lower than the upper outside. And of course, you can make like a cat's eye if you really want to emphasize that, or people when they draw females sometimes tend to do that quite a bit. But he actually has a fairly droopy eye where the outside of his eye actually falls. And again, that just kind of speaks to the character a little bit, you know. And he also has very heavily lidded eyeballs, which I guess we can kind of lean to. But again, this just gives you a little bit more leeway, and now you can actually take this orbit and really have it overlap. You know, that folds of the skin and the bone that's underneath there. You can play around with that quite a bit. So we'll go through here, and again, it's going to go through here, and we can emphasize a little bit of the nose. So now nose construction. You can have some cartilage in here, and then you're going to get to these little knobs here. And then let me scooch this down. Damien standard, again, go through and cut, and then standard brush. And then I'm just going to raise this resolution up just a tiny bit as we're moving forward and we're figuring things out. Oh, and one thing when we were talking about the lips, that was, so you've got, oops, using, you love when you use ZBrush hotkeys in other programs. So you've got your mouth cylinder here, and you got the midline of the face, and then here's one side of the mouth, and on the other side it's going to be closer because it's receding in the distance. So again, it's going to kind of wrap around here. So if we do the basic mouth, which is going to be, okay, we have a really shift doesn't work. Am I crazy? I really am trying to use ZBrush hotkeys in Photoshop. So here's kind of a mouth, and you got the corners of the mouth here, and then if you have upper lip and lower lip, and then okay, this is going to kind of dip down, this is going to dip down, and then your upper lip is going to kind of take over, and then your lower lip's going to kind of tuck in. So as if you just kind of follow these rules of, this is your basic, you can maybe break it off into 2 or 3 lobes, and then your lower lip again just is going to tuck in to that upper lip. Essentially, that's all we're really doing in here. We're just doing it in 3D. So again, Damien standard, we're going to hold down Alt, and we're going to kind of pull up along here, and then we can go into our move. We can kind of push this down, and then push this back, and then go in with our clay brush and build this up like so, and then smooth it back. And then we have our upper lip kind of tucked in our lower lip. Of course, that doesn't mean you can't go in here and have a little bit of fun with, you can go mask pin or mask lasso and go through here and be like, you know what, let's fuzz that out, and let's, maybe he has a pretty severe underbite. Nothing wrong with that. Or you can actually go through here and you can pronounce that upper lip, or you can mask the upper lip here, mask pin, and again, control tap to kind of lessen that transition or unharsh that edge here, and then that can kind of be, let's go through here and kind of play around with these shapes a bit. And that'll be that. Now it looks like on the reference he does actually have pretty pronounced lips, which is an interesting choice. A lot of times on males you would de-emphasize kind of the lusciousness of the lips here, but on him they kind of went for it, which is cool. So something like that. Now we are going to run into a bit of a problem when we say we want to go in here and ZRemesh this, and that we can create a mouth bag. Now I've already got a ton of stuff on mouth bag creation on my YouTube channel. Creating a mouth bag, a ZRemesher, mouth bag and nostrils creation, and in your mouth bag, etc., etc. Do I want to do that now? Because one thing you can do is just go ahead and start modeling with that mouth bag, thinking about it, in which case I would go through here and I'd actually start rotating this down. So I'd say, you know what, jaw, you are going to have an open mouth. And then maybe even this entire head. And let's do move multiple, Control Shift drag here, and we're just going to kind of put his head back a bit. And then go out and move multiple. So now if we're modeling with his mouth open, that just might make it a little bit easier for us to create that geometry later on. So that basically just, you know what, we can go through here and we can say like mask and pull back, and you know, that's fine. But also you can use a live Boolean if you're so inclined. So you go ramp, and then split mask points, and then we can say you are our Boolean, and then for the mouth line, let's go ahead and reset this. Stretch it out. Stretch it out. So this can be this, and then we can go through and we can kind of mask. Now this is Dynamesh, so we can go through here, and this can be our mouth. And then if we say live Boolean and turn this to subtractive, let's just have these two showing. You can see this is the result we're getting. So we can kind of use this to dictate where this mouth bag is going to end up. And you can actually go into solo mode here, and you can say, you know what, let's go ahead and inflate this up. Move this around. Control drag to redynamesh. And this is our result. So let's say this is fine. It's a good enough start anyway. And since this is a live Boolean, I can do a Boolean, but I can also just use it as a preview. So if I know that's what it's going to look like, I can say this is subtractive, this is not, merge down, control drag, and now this is our Dynamesh result. So now we can go through here. I'm going to inflate this a bit. Inflate this a bit, and we do have a skull sitting out here. So what we could do is we can say Control Shift, select lasso, and we can just grab bits of these teeth, or we can just do the opposite. We can say, you know what, skull and jaw, Control Shift A, which is visibility, grow all, delete hidden, and then now we just have some teeth hanging out. So you can kind of move and scale and rotate these to kind of fit the mouth here. Or something like that. So that'll be a start, let's say. So now we have a little bit more leeway with the head here, and we can talk a little bit more about this upper lip overlapping that lower lip here. Again, we're just holding down Alt, and we can go into our trim dynamic, and this will kind of start. And if you want to go crazy with the trim dynamic as well and just start making planes of the face like this, you can certainly feel free to do that and use that in conjunction with H-polish as well. So we'll go ahead and let's inflate this up a bit. Now this will help us when we go into ZRemesh. Cool. MPC's presentation on the workflow of Disney's Lion King is now on YouTube, which you can check out. And I'm trying to remember. Oh, I did watch that one. And they go into, about halfway through, they go into environments as well. So you can see them kind of sculpting the lions and the baboons, and then also getting into environment creation and stuff. And I was astounded that they didn't use photogrammetry on the rocks. They just went through and hand sculpted everything. That was interesting on those rocks and stuff. Do you think learning muscle names is essential, or does it just come with time? It comes with time, but it's certainly not essential. Some of the people that I follow that do the best anatomy are just observational, and they just go and they kind of just talk like that too, where they're kind of like, oh, you know what? I guess we don't need these variants in here. They'll just talk in very general terms, like this arm here, something. I mean, they'll pull out the basics like, oh, bicep and tricep and stuff like that, but anything beyond that, they're not really sweating the details as far as technical details. But they do know the volumes very well, and they do know the forms very well. And honestly, that's way more important than knowing the names, like by an order of magnitude. Is that how you say it? It's not even comparable. Like if you're going to pick one, pick knowing the volumes, forms, and rules and shapes over learning the names to the detriment of anything else. Now, obviously, when you're learning the names, you're usually learning both at once. So It's not bad to know. It just it helps you communicate, especially if you're going to teach. It just gives you a little bit more of a common language to kind of pull from, as opposed to having to speak too generally all the time. But at the end of the day, honestly, there's nothing wrong with speaking generally and using general terms that everybody knows and all that stuff. One thing we forgot is we were talking earlier about that hyoid bone, and also you got some meat at the bottom of your neck here, so you don't want to think too much in terms of, oh yeah, we got a jawbone and then we got neck muscles, and you actually have a lot of stuff hanging out. You got your Adam's apple and or the hyoid bone, and those things are going to kind of connect up, and you have the meat underneath your chin there. You don't want to. And again, we were playing real fast and loose with these proportions, so his neck is ridiculously long. If we want to fix that again, we can just hit W, move multiple, and then for the body here, let's go ahead and hold down Control Shift, and we'll unmask, or we'll unmark everything, and then we'll hold down Control, and we'll just mask lasso kind of the neck, and then we'll hold down Control and just kind of tap to feather that out a bit. Another thing you can do, you can just back out, and that'll just automatically give you a nice feathered fall off. So now we're going to invert that, and then we're going to move multiple, so we're going to hold down Control Shift, unhatch everything, and we're going to say the head. Actually, you know what? We'll just unhatch everything, because now that we've masked, and then let's go ahead and reset this so we can literally just move it along that axis, and then from the side we can just move it from this axis. So there we go. And then hold down Shift, RGB off, Z add, W, make sure you turn move multiple off. There we go. And it looks like this little lower eyelid got away from me. That's okay. So now what we were talking about as far as like investigating and using 3D as your pal, as your creation pal, is you can actually just go through here really quickly and then just run. You can always go through here and you can change the light. If you want to go from this side here, like that can be the light. And this is a little bit much, so I'm going to go in here just for preview purposes. I'm going to go into my render settings real quick, just make some small changes. We're going to go into shadow. Global strength we're going to knock down. Floor strength we don't need to worry about. We're not really seeing too much of that. And then also, if you want to, you can turn the blur down and then change that angle so that as it gets further away from the light source, it kind of fuzzes out a little bit. And now you're going to see the lights aren't so intense. You can even add AO. In this case, it's probably not going to make too much of a difference, especially if you're just going to be drawing over something. But one thing I am noticing is, let's go into move multiple, unhash everything, and then U, and U, Control Shift Tap. Let's go ahead and move these in. Those are getting a little bit fish-eyed. But anyway, yeah, so you can do, just kind of playing around and sculpting. You've gone through here and you've done a head, and you've used all of the things in 3D that are kind of fun and easy in 3D, which is symmetry, and you get automatic perspective and automatic shadow direction and stuff like that. And then if you want to go and draw, you can take what you've gotten for free in 3D and you can use that to supplement or guide your 2D drawing. So we're going to go hold down Alt, and let's go ahead and again we're going to keep cranking this resolution up, because now we're getting to the point where we're getting into secondary forms here. So here we're going to take this here, and then on the corners of the mouth it's going to come down, and then you're going to have like a little node here at the corner of the mouth here where a bunch of stuff attaches, and then again this lower lip is going to go and attach to that upper lip here. And you can delineate this if you want to. We're kind of putting in a line here. Sometimes they have them, sometimes they don't. The reference has it, which you know what, I'll just roll with that. And then through here, the bottom of the lip. And I'm not being slavish to the reference. I've actually got a couple different references over here. I'm kind of looking back and forth. I'm not doing a resculpt or anything like that. I'm just kind of using it, and honestly, like I could even go through here and just grab some more general stuff. Like, oh, it's another really cool one. This is a cool one. So like when you start getting into really tertiary detail or poor detail and like wrinkle direction, this is another good one. Kind of go through here and you can use this to kind of guide and again keep you honest. So that would be like our lower eye bag, lower lid here. Oops. And looks like it went a little bit crazy. I'm going to do a quick mirror and weld. And you know what? Just to play it safe. Quick save. And you know what? Just because when we do a quick save, that's an entire project. I don't need all this anymore, so I'm going to say delete all. And now when I do a quick save, it should save faster. And then we go in here to our quick saves, and we'll just reload from our last. So this is all recovered. And then quick save. Boy, that scares me. Also, let's just do this. Save as. Streaming. Gauntly. There we go. But you can also, we should just be able to reload from this last quick save here, and this will have all the stuff that we need. All right, let's turn on perspective real quick, and again, we'll go through and we'll fix this. And we want to make sure that this is giving us enough room to go through here and just kind of go back to the corners of the eyes here. And that's where, you know, this can kind of come into play. And we're starting to get possibly a little too much resolution. And then there's the eye bags, but it's also going to kind of phase into the eye bags we already have going. So again, when we finally get to the point where we integrate these eyelids, these will kind of be sunken into each other, but I'm really using these to kind of frame the eyeball and make sure we have eyelid thickness. And then also the upper eyelid is probably going to overlap that lower eyelid, just like the mouth here. So that just gives us this result here. These brows we can probably drop considerably here, and then again, we did have some big bushy eyebrows, and most of the reference I'm saying doesn't have big bushy eyebrows, and that's okay. We can actually just use that as a separate mesh, and we'll actually go through, go through and do a bunch of exploration on that front. But if you want to put in like an indication of that, you can go in here with your clay buildup, and you can say, be like, okay, here's the general direction of where those are going to go, and then here, and then clay brush here. And then, again, how deep or how pronounced you want some of this stuff is kind of up to you, but we'll go ahead and we can kind of maybe mask pin this here, and then we can go through and you just kind of pull. You know, actually, there's actually gravity in the brush settings somewhere. Brush samples? Modifiers? Where is it? It's been a while. Somewhere in ZBrush it wouldn't be under picker, would it? Because that's just orientation. Gravity, constant sample on surface. If I was ZBrush, where would I put gravity? Strength multipliers for IMM brushes. Tablet pressure. Depth. Gravity strength under depth. So you can turn on gravity strength. So as I'm sculpting with my standard brush, it's going to kind of pull in the direction that you have this arrow, so you can go through and you can, oh, I thought you could, wait, standard brush. Oh, gravity is always pointing down, so I suppose if you flipped your object upside down, oh, strength is 0. Nope, it's always going to be in that world direction. So you can see it's going to kind of, well, no, it does. So gravity here, you can see as you're sculpting, it's pulling in the direction of gravity and then pulling in the direction of gravity. Of course, you don't have to do this 100. You can just do a little bit lighter. But if that's interesting to you, by all means, I'm going to go through here. And again, we're just going to pull these folds down a bit. Now, part of the problem too is, and why I'm so interested in kind of getting to a ZRemesh solution, is we are going to lose a lot of the cool folding that can happen. Like when I go through here and ZRemesh this, or when I Dynamesh this together, we're going to lose a lot of this really undercut, nice folding that's happening. We can get it back, but just be aware that that also helps the believability and the and also this too. Like we can go in here and we do this, and then we really want to kind of tuck that lower lip into our upper lip. I would maybe do that after ZRemeshing. So maybe kind of leave these corners open a bit, and then when we ZRemesh we'll get that geometry, and then we can really go and push and pull that geometry around. So let's get to that. But I keep talking about it. So if you wanted to go through here and like, okay, print screen, just use green shot if you want, or sniping tool. Go through here and we can just, oops, I can paste this. So earlier we did just a straight up drawing, just basic construction drawing here, and then now that we have a head we can use this as our guide, and so we can go through here and you know what? There we go. And let's harshen that up a bit. Yeah, something like that. So now when you go through here, again, you could still use basic construction, or if you need to find the midline, but at least now you have a concrete face here that has, a giraffe and a midline here, and then you can go through here and you can kind of explore, different ideas. So if you wanted to kind of play around with, again, here's the corners of the mouth are going to be dark, and the direction of the light's actually coming this way. So in this case, we can darken up this side here, and if you wanted to play around with the eyebrows on this guy, or maybe a weird hairline. I shouldn't say weird hairline. There's nothing weird about that hairline, but here, and then maybe corners of the eyes here, and you know what? We can actually let's have his eyes go a little bit wonk-eyed here. And pronounce these eye bags here, and we got again the gaunt cheekbones. And this is actually, I'm noticing that this cheekbone swoop is actually missing probably a little bit of a corner there. And then again, here's the orbit coming back through, and then you can go through and you can put some wrinkles on there. And if you want to play around with this nose or how it integrates to the face, or if you want to, you know what? Let's see if we could do a little mustache, a little kind of a John Waters-esque here. And then he's got his mouth open a little bit, which is fine. Chin here, and then you know what? Let's also do like a little, what's that called? Soul patch. It's already, and again, you're just using what you already have in 3D. I don't know why it keeps doing that. To kind of guide and allow you just like kind of an underlying structure that you kind of get for free, and then you can go through here and make whatever character you want. Like so. Something like that. Let's see. Why didn't you use extract for the eyelids? It's too sloppy. If you can go in here, but you're going to be playing around a lot with, okay, let me mask this, or I'm going to slice it off, and I'm going to extract, and I'm going to go play with thicknesses, and it's going to kind of bulge out, and you can do T-corners to kind of keep those constrained. But honestly, I rarely use extract. There's very rare instances. It just doesn't give me, even when I'm doing like quick sloppy armor creation, I rarely use extract. Not to say you can't, and that's just more of a personal preference for me. It just becomes, extract is just too sloppy for me. I can usually ZRemesh and get the result I want with ZModeler, or I can go through and I can just mask and transpose to get what I need out of it, as opposed to fiddling with extraction. It's nice though, and using extraction in conjunction with other things like groups loops and panel loops and stuff is certainly cool. And a lot of people really like extract is like a fundamental part of how they work in ZBrush. So again, I'm not telling you don't. I'm just telling you my personal preference is I'm not a big extractor here. So again, we're just kind of going through, and oh yeah, we were going to talk about ZRemeshing this. But I'm going to catch up on these questions here. And if I miss any, I apologize. I'm getting a little bit behind here. Duplicated the eyeballs, yes, and then sliced, or we did a trim. So it just basically, the difference between slice and trim is trim will go through and slice, delete what was behind the gradient and then fill hole. No problem. Thanks for showing up, everybody. Hello from Spain. Yes. Origins and insertions. That's another thing too. Is learning those is kind of comes along with the form and functionality of stuff. This is the corner I was talking about here. I think that probably a little bit more bone underneath there, and then this is kind of skin and fat, and not a huge amount of muscle in the face, but certainly enough to kind of push and pull your head around here. Let me see this philtrum. We can kind of tone down this philtrum a bit, I think. I don't know that it needs to be that deep or pronounced. And then for the nose here, this kind of curls up here, and then these also kind of go through. So now we're getting into really deeper into the secondary forms. So that would probably be where I stop and go ahead and ZRemesh. As long as I'm not doing anything crazier, and we can ZRemesh as many times as we want to, but as long as I'm not doing stuff like this kind of thing, and really stressing the geometry, then ZRemeshing at this point should be fine. But we also got to get that body up to a certain point too. So when I merge these down, I'm fine. And honestly, I'm not going to stress too much about the body here. We can go through and we can do some, ancillary detail, kind of surface undulations, but really just basically go through here and you can kind of smooth it out. His upper pec's pretty pronounced. And the pec too is something to consider, is it just kind of sits on top of that rib cage. So a lot of times you'll see when people do pecs, their default, and it might come from reference too, is they'll be like, hasta la vista, baby. And really, pecs are pretty thin. Bodybuilder pecs maybe not, but as Joe Schmo and certainly emaciated guys like this aren't going to have massive, heavy musculature here. Also, he's very lean, this guy. So you're going to see a lot of, you could go through here and do a lot of pec separation, like get your Bruce Lee reference out and just go through here, and you can actually like see, these striations of the pecs kind of sitting next to that sternum. So you can go through here and you can kind of put in, the muscle direction kind of as a start. And again, this portion comes down this way, and then these go across, and then these start going up. So as long as you know the striation directions, as you go through here and you start adding your details, it'll at least be in the right direction, and it'll read. Even if you put them in the wrong direction, the people who are looking at it might be like, you know what, that looks weird. I don't know why it looks weird to me. It just kind of reads off. And it could be something as simple as that. So I'm going to drop my smooth intensity down. And then this, you always got to think, like, okay, it's not just muscles sitting there. You're going to have a little bit of skin and fat. And also on the male, what's going to cause that that corner of the pec a lot of times is going to be a fat deposit right here. That's what's going to kind of square out that pec. On him, he's very emaciated, so maybe not so much. But also in the notch of the neck here, we can kind of make that a little bit more. We can kind of give him a little bit more of a clavicle here, and then an attachment point for his mastoid. Now he does have a platysma there, but just like the latissimus dorsi, it's kind of a thin muscle that's being more. Its shape is more dictated by the underlying muscles more so than the actual lats here. And then even underneath here, you're going to have some spinal erectors that kind of give you two little tubes back here. All that good stuff. So anyway, we got this to a good enough point, I suppose. And you also have two heads coming off of here. You got one that goes to the clavicle and then one that goes to the sternum. So this clavicle one will kind of fan that out just a bit. And you got some muscles in here as well. And then you got your traps that are going to go up to that occipital protuberance. So this is actually, that needs to be, that little bump on the back of the skull here is where those are going to end up. And then this is going to end up on that corner here, but we can kind of fuzz that out. And I'm just holding down Alt and tapping to go between subtools, so I'm not having to hunt over here. Let's play around with this cranium here. Yeah, that's a bit much probably. And then, yeah, I guess that'll work. So at this point, we'll take our head and drop that onto our body, and then Dynamesh this, and now our body has inherited the Dynamesh resolution of our head, in this case, which is fine. And we'll go through here, and now we're getting into like secondary details, and this is where I'm going to start probably ZRemeshing this result, so we can go through there and just murder it with all the little fine noodly stuff. But as long as our basic form's here, and again, I'm keeping these corners of the mouth and these overhangs, I'm not going to push those too hard just yet because we are going to be ZRemeshing those. Let's go ahead and integrate those eyelids. So we'll take this, and we got eyeball here. Now we're going to take this body and we're going to move this to the top, or above the eyelids at least, and we're going to, well, let's do this. Let's smooth these out first. So here, I'm going to go through here and we're going to do underneath geometry crease. We're going to crease polygroup. Then we turn on dynamic, and that'll go ahead and give us a preview of what it would look like dynamically subdivided. We can hit apply to make that real geometry, and then same thing. Crease polygroup, turn on dynamic, make sure it's working-ish. Say apply, and then now go through and move these as needed. And I like the kind of overcrank thickness. Now, if you're going to 3D print this, I would say really overcrank, especially when you're printing to scale, like 1/8 scale or something like that. You're going to want to, and when you get into fine surface detail like jean textures or fabric cloth textures, you're really going to want to make those larger than life, and then also deeper than you would want to, just to make it really read from scale, 3D printed, cleaned up. You're going to lose some resolution and detail and stuff. So if you overcrank it, you can buy some of that back. Just food for thought. Same thing with eyelid distance and stuff. If you're thinking 1/8 scale, making sure that everything reads as needed. So anyway, we got the body here, we got the eyelids. So I'm going to go ahead and merge these down, control drag, and now these are all Dynamesh together. Let's raise that resolution. You know what? Before we do that, let's raise that resolution up just a tiny bit. There we go. And now we can integrate these eyelids, and now this isn't going to be a pronounced curve through here, so we'll go ahead and just, this will kind of be our eyelid shape here, and then go in with our Damien standard. And we can kind of start giving some indications too, and this is getting into more detail than I would bother with, honestly, but if you are going to continue forward and not go into ZRemesher, you can do that, but I would suggest ZRemeshing. So we got our body here, and he's kind of weird looking, but that's okay. So I'm not going to make any major changes, so we'll go ahead and talk about ZRemesh. In the olden days, back before 2020, you would have to duplicate this off and project. We can just use our history. In this case, I'm going to do a quick save, and then we'll just reload. And I'll get caught up here. Cool. In our university, they made us learn anatomy also from medical university books. We had an autopsy class where the teacher showed us corpse and taught us to the muscles and the anatomic connections. And that's a really good too. If you have access to that, you don't have to rely on the digital version of going through and being like, getting your bone saw out and your scalpels and stuff. Another really good resource, I'm not going to pull it up because it's got severe nudity. It's anatomical nudity, but I know YouTube gets weird about that. But 1024 has some anatomy stuff you can do. I'm trying to look and see where it is. It's like Anatomy 360, and it'll give you actual human beings that are scan data in different poses, and you can move them around and rotate them up and down and side to side and move the lighting around and turn the textures off and on so you can focus more on value and stuff like that. So that's a really good resource as well. Cool. My characters always look mental. Mine too. You and me both. So we're going to go through here, and so like we said before, we can just use our history as what we're going to project back to. So all we need to do is we'll go ahead and ZRemesh this. Now let's go ahead and break this up just a little bit here. So we're going to go into solo mode here, and we'll turn off, we're going to keep polyframe on, we're going to turn off line so we can see a little bit better, and we'll also switch over to like a matte cap. Skin shader 4, not a matte cap. And then we can go through here, and now you can see when it's not a matte cap, your light can dictate. So this is actually a good thing to have it to get into as well, as going through here and changing your lighting condition as you sculpt. Kind of make sure that this will kind of point out some flaws in your reasoning. But anyway, let's go through here, and very quickly I'm going to hold down Control, mask pin, and we'll say we're just going to put in some control where ZRemesher is going to end up. So I want to have a loop around this eyelid here. And you could use curves for this, but boy, it's just a lot easier and also more visual to go through here and do polygroups. One thing you can do, and I'm doing this on the high res, so it will be baked in, quote unquote, to your ZRemeshed object, but I'm not too concerned about that, is you can actually go through here and, oops, once you put a line through there, you can go through their geometry, and then you can use edge loop and then edge loop mask border, which will slice a curve through here. And you can even go through here and you can say, you know what, let me go ahead and mask out this border, and you can even grow it and invert it. And then you can go through here and you can say polish by features, and you can just smooth that out, and that'll actually smooth that line. Now when you go to ZRemesher, there's an option to smooth your polygroups, and that's what I would do. But in case you needed that, that's an option for you. So here and then through here, we'll try and put a loop around the nostril here. Good enough. And again, we'll just do a quick edge loop mask border. Hotkey for that is Control-Shift-E. We'll use it. Control-Shift-E. And then certainly around the lips. Now this is probably going to be one of the more important ones. Not important in such that we're trying to be like, hey, can you make an animatable mesh out of this? Absolutely you can. Is it going to get you a job being the topology wizard for a production? No. Is it going to get the job done for what we need? Absolutely. And in fact, if you go and watch what they linked earlier, the Lion King, making of Lion King, they talk a little bit about like, oh, can you use ZRemesh for production? Of course you can. And you can actually use ZRemesh and you can clean it up. You don't have to use it wholesale. But if you just need something quick to preview, there's nothing wrong with it. Now, obviously topology purists and stuff are going to want to know exactly where these loops are. And in this case, what I would do is I would have a human base mesh that I would use ZWrap, or I would use Wrap 3 or whatever version of the wrap you want to use, and just go through here and plot points. And then I would take a perfect mesh geometry and snap it to my high-res sculpt. And you can do that for scan data as well. So you don't have to worry about creating perfect topology every time. You have perfect topology and then you just snap it to the face, because a human face doesn't change all that much. Even something as stylized as this, I can take a scan data retopologized beautiful mesh and snap it to here, and I would be probably 100% done. I'm not even going to say like, oh, you know, you might not be all the way done. Probably you would be. Let's go ahead and do an auto group so we can separate out that mouth bag here. So we're just making polygroups through here. So I can now go ahead and isolate this if I want to, or I can go through here with brush. Let's close some of these down. I don't need all this open. Auto masking. Mask my polygroups up to 100, so when I'm going through here and masking, I can just mask around the polygroups and I don't have to go into them. So I'm going to say, you know what, let's put another ring around this eyeball here. And actually, now that I think about it, if you go to ZBrush for illustrators, ZBrushForIllustrators.com. You just go to a website, but Steve James has kind of this workflow as well, so I can link you to ZBrush for Illustrators playlists. It's on their ZBrush's YouTube playlist here, and you can kind of use those loops. So we already kind of have that. We have edge loops, mask border, and so yeah, let's do Control-Shift-E. And then again, with mask by polygroups up to 100, we can go through here, and we've already done the lips. We can do the nose, it looks like. So we can go through here and we can mask out. You know what, do we want to put, let's go all the way around. And this is maybe even overkill for what you would need. I'll leave it up to you. But so we got this, and then we're going to put a loop. You could just ZRemesh. You don't have to go through all of this. But if it's useful, why not? And then this is going to go around here. And this will make it easier if you do want to do my ZBrush for concept and ideation, I think it's called. we actually do this type of thing so that we can do layers and do poses and blend shapes and stuff. Just make it a little bit easier. Okay, we'll call that a day. And we are getting some stray groups. We can fix that in a second. And I guess the rest of the head, oh, and then through here. So we'll say you are give him that superhero Robin mask here. Okay, let's say that's good enough for government work. So now through here, let's go ahead. I'm going to hold down Control Shift. I'm just going to tap between those two polygroups here and make sure that these are relatively clean. Because ZRemesher will try and integrate. It's only going to do what you tell it to do. So if you're telling it to do something, be prepared to have it do it. And when I was doing edge loop mask border, that's where I was kind of, let's do this. Let's do an auto groups on this one. Let's do a quick mirror and weld. And, oh, well, that fixed that nicely. Let's turn off LSIM. So making sure we're getting our midline mirror and weld, and then through here, clean up. Oh, it didn't fix that. It just made it not as noticeable. So here, Control W, here, and then this can be grouped, Control W. Anything around the nostril. All right, I think we're in good shape. So we've done all of that work, and this is going to essentially be our high res that we're going to project back to. So let's go back to our startup material so we can see this a little bit better once we ZRemesh. Or you know what? I think we're going to have our lines on, so I think we'll be okay. So anyway, we have this here, and what we're going to do is we're going to ZRemesh this. We have X symmetry turned on, so we're going to go into our ZRemesh options. And we'll go ahead and stick with the defaults for now, although let's turn the adaptive size down a bit. Not all the way down to 0 for even quads, but maybe like 13. We're going to say keep groups, smooth groups at 1. So they'll go ahead and smooth our groups for us and maybe give us a little bit more of a natural result. And then, you know what else we probably should do? Let's do this. Control Shift, slice. We'll make that a polygroup. And we can make this a polygroup. Now, slice is only going to happen on one axis, so you are going to have to go through here and do a mirror and weld. Actually, we can do better than that. So let's take this polygroup here. Let's go ahead and mask this. Hit Control W, and then we're going to take both of these. Hit Control W. And the ears, I'm just going to leave alone. Now, you can go through here when you are ZRemeshing. You can go through, and this is using like Quad Mesher. I'll have a Houdini playlist that kind of goes through like an automated version of ZRemesher. But for now, it's got great functionality. So ZBrush right now, I think, has the best quad mesher functionality in the industry, bar none. It's all built in. It works consistently. I think it's a really good solution. So ZRemesher for the win, as far as I'm concerned. So we have our high res here. We have it all looped up. And we're going to go through here. And again, a depth size down. We're not going to do half. We're going to give it a target. And we'll go ahead and say maybe, 10K. For now, and smooth our groups, keep groups on, and we'll hit ZRemesh, and we do have X symmetry turned on, and that's important. It'll, number one, it'll work a lot faster. Number two, it's symmetrical, so why not? And keep going, keep going, keep going. Ta-da! Perfect geometry. Now, perfect? Maybe not. Good enough? Absolutely. So we have our new geometry here, and now we need to get our details back. Now you could keep going through here and you can hit half, or you could put edge loops around the ear to make that resolve a little bit better. I'm not really overly concerned about that. You can paint in, you go in here and you can say use poly paint. You can paint color density. So if you want less dense in the back of the head, more dense on the front of the face, go for it. I'm not overly thrilled about this. You know what? Let's do this. Let's say instead of 10, let's say 14,000. Sometimes just throwing more geometry is the problem. You can also hold down Alt and hit ZRemesher. That'll give you a different algorithm. So if you're having like midline problems, you're trying to do a game res-ish start and you're getting some weird issues down the midline of your geometry, you can hold down Alt and get a different result. Now through here, it's not terrible. And you can actually go through here as ZModeler if you wanted to, and you could clean this up a little bit. We could say like collapse these edges through here maybe. And then you can hold down Shift and you can go through and you can slice this. So let's go through here and say, you know what? We're going to go ahead and split all the way down to this edge here. And then we'll say bridge 2 points, and we'll say you go to, whoops, you go to you, you go to you, you. And now we can go through here, and we can say delete edge. Now you could also throw this into Z-spheres. You can just clone it off and grab a Z-sphere, I think. And we just slide this. There might be a limit to how much you can pull into a Z-sphere, but that should be fine. And this is, you know, this is good enough-ish. Let's see if we can't. I don't want to get too nitpicky here. Oh, you know what? And part of the problem is my fault, which is having crappy geometry or having ZRemesher seeing some loose polygroups that I made. So again, not ZRemesher's fault. It's more my fault for being sloppy. But let's go ahead and fix these. Let's say bridge 2 points here to here, and then collapse. Bada bing, bada boom. All right, so we have our new geometry, and we have history that has our high res here. So let's go back to our startup material, and we're going to say, here's our high res geo. So we're going to control tap this, and we're going to go all the way forward, and this is our new geometry. So we're going to go in here to what? Oh, if you want more information on this, again, it's on my YouTube channel under playlist, but also any of the what's new stuff is in here. And ZBrush 2020 especially has a lot of, like, normally it's like, oh, ZBrush 2019, what's new? Here's 48 videos on what's new, and then here's some picture examples. So that's easy enough to go to the YouTube playlist. ZBrush 2020, I have a what's new. It's 41 videos on what's new in ZBrush 2020. This is part of that. And then also have like a time lapse here you can watch. This little V-Ray render. This guy took about 4 hours start to finish just to kind of create, and then, you know, unwrap him and throw him into V-Ray and do little particles and stuff like that. So it's about 4.5 hours to finish, about half a day. And then here's new features live stream, new feature part 2 live stream, and then some pretty pictures. So this one's a little bit more complicated. So if you want more on that, new features, check that out. So anyway, we got new geometry, and we have details control tapped here. And then we have underneath in ZBrush 2020, we now have the ability to go over here to project, and we have project history. We haven't done any color yet, which is fine. You could also project color, but we're just going to do geometry. So we're going to say project history, and that's going to project our details back. So now as we hit Control D to subdivide, we can go in here to project history, and it's going to go and project from that history point to give us back our details. So I'm just subdividing and projecting. So we are going to have subdivision history and our details back. So now here's our subdivision level 1, which we can go through and we can UV this, and we can do blend shapes and stuff. And then here's subdivision level 4. And now when we go through and start sculpting, we don't have to worry about Dynamesh anymore. And let's take this one, let's hit D for dynamic, smooth those out a little bit. So for example, when I was talking about, you know, the lips and working with those correctly, we can go to subdivision level 1, and now we can very easily go through here, and let's turn off mask by polygroups down to 0. We can go through here and we can mask this upper part, and then this lower part we can go through and we can actually manipulate and move the geometry as needed, get those nice overhangs from our eyelids here. So we can go through here, and you know what we can also do? We can say, we mask this edge. Oh, it's free. You can freeze subdivision levels. I'm not going to bother doing that. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to isolate this, and we're going to mask our border, invert that, and now I can go through here and I can literally just kind of go through and I can pull up here, and then Control Tab to invert that mask, and I can pull this down. So now we're getting nice overlap, deep geometry. Now you do need to kind of maybe be careful if you're going to be shooting displacement maps. That may not, you might run into some issues there from projection errors and stuff like that, but just for kind of working as we're working here, this makes it a lot nicer to go through. And number one, it's a nicer surface to sculpt on because it's nice and quadded. And number two, just the ability to go through there and get those overlaps, like this overlap here. So again, mask this out like so, invert that, and then really just kind of pull this geometry. And we're not stressing the geometry. We're not making it. We're not causing it to have a whole bunch of errors or anything, or stressing it to the point where we need to rebuild the geometry because it's going to start sculpting weird. But just basically going through and I guess I'm using a clay brush and stuff, and getting those overlaps on the face there. So here and here, sculpt it out, and again, you can go through here. You go through in your pinch. And you can start, even this type of stuff isn't going to stress the geo too much if you want to just kind of go through and kind of start touching these things and playing around with proportions and stuff. That ear did get a little bit hairy. You could put loops around the ear and maybe help that out a little bit. But it's such a, as long as the ear forms are okay, it's not going to be deforming that much. So you should be all right. So we can go through here, and again, we're just going to. And if you're just going through and you're having fun and you're not doing a live stream where you're, I mean, not that live streaming isn't fun. I'm having a tremendous amount of fun. But if you were just kind of going through and sculpting, this type of thing, all this process that I've been doing, maybe take you 40 minutes, you know, start to finish, as opposed to 2 hours of me just kind of rambling and doing, you know, weird tangents and stuff like that and talking about what I'm doing. You can just go through and execute. You can very quickly go through and do what you need to do. And then, of course, we have subdivision history, so we can keep going up and up and up and up and up. And I'm going to go ahead and hold down Shift to smooth this out a little bit. And now we can start getting into, again, going into that Damien standard and really kind of pushing and pulling, going with your clay brush, your clay buildup, and start pushing and pulling these forms around. And you see the geometry reacts just so much nicer. And it allows you, and again, you can hold down Alt if you want to really like find the volumes here a little bit more, and then standard brush, kind of curve these in a little bit more. And now we're getting into maybe a little too much detail. But another thing you can do is with your Damien standard, you can just go through and you can kind of start again those delineation lines that are in the reference here. You can hold down Alt. You can kind of pull up and then pull in, and then clay brush, go through here. And you can actually isolate this if it's a little bit too much noise going on or stuff's in your way. Just go through here and isolate it because you have polygroups now. Very, very easy. And then go through here and start maybe building up these lips a little bit, like so. And then here and here. And then also like where folds naturally would happen, or in the brow, for example, you know, the skin folds, go through here and really kind of push that a bit. And then wrinkles on the forehead, maybe. You can start indicating those a bit. And these are almost still secondary forms, you know, depending on how deep they are and stuff. We're not talking about like poor detail or anything like that yet. And then this is going to kind of swoop again. Swoop 1, swoop 2, helix swoop. Have a good day. Okay, good. Thank you. Yeah, I'm almost done. I didn't realize it was 8 o'clock already. Aaron's going to work, and the dogs are fed, everybody. So I don't have to do that. But anyway, I'll go ahead and wrap it up. You guys see where this is going, right? Basically, at this point, you're just going to go through and start detailing up. Have some fun. And also, the other cool thing, too, is when you start doing blend shapes, it's going to be a lot easier. You can drop down to level 1. And let me see if I have an example. So you can see it real quick. Oh, actually, you know what? if you go in here to blend shape, yeah, ZBrush Maya blend shapes plugin, I go through and there's a little 10-minute video on. This is actually from the ZBrush Summit 2018. So if you look for my ArtStation page, this one has a ton of stuff in it. So here's the ZBrush Summit videos I did after the summit. Here's the ZBrush Summit that you can watch where I went through it, and then here's the cinematic video. So this is the blend shapes that I created for this lady right here. And again, it was just a handful of people kind of doing this in Unreal. So it was kind of quick and dirty work, but creating the blend shapes in ZBrush pretty easy. Like, you know, just kind of going through and doing the basic blend shapes for that type of stuff is all right there in ZBrush Maya blend shapes. And also if you want to do multiple blend shapes or mirror your blend shapes and stuff like that, it's all in there. As well as, I'm trying to think, I want to say in here, you can see an example in the ideation series. Yeah, there we go. So as you're doing blend shapes in here, you can go through and you can do, you know, as you're furrowing your brow, this is going to happen. So you can go through and you can dial in different expressions for your character, and you know, it's all fairly simple. And that way, you're not just stuck with, okay, here's my A pose guy for my ArtStation page or whatever. You can go through and you can do different expressions very quickly and all that good stuff. But anyway, that was fun. Hope you guys had fun watching me ramble. Let's see. Can you show this new way of doing all the project? My English is very beginner. Yeah, actually, go to ZBrush 2020 What's New, and in here, video, history recall brush with color, history recall versus morph recall versus project brush. It should be in here. I'll link you to that. And then also just in here, it might be easier just to go to my YouTube channel and say, or you can just Google it, but in here, I just know for certain it's in here. There it is, project history. There's the individual video where it goes through, and we have the lower res one, and then it's exactly what I did here. And you can actually use Sculptris Pro to dial in, bring back what you want, which is kind of interesting too. Cool. All right. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to head out. And so if you want to see this backed up, it's always going to be, I'm always going to have it on my YouTube channel as well. So if you go to my YouTube channel and you go to the live stream playlists, live stream full episodes, it'll be in there, as well as if I go over here to my Pavlovich workshop for ZBrush, this is where my stuff is archived in this playlist as well. So if you want to go through my ZBrush ones I do on Tuesdays, it's all here and on my YouTube channel. And then my Thursday one's going to be on my YouTube channel when I stream on Twitch and YouTube and all that good stuff. Facebook maybe. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but it's all here. So here's the workshop, and here's the other backup and other new stuff that I end up dropping. So keep you up to date-ish. Cool. Thanks, everybody, and I will catch you on Thursday.